Okay, so we're done with the men's semifinals. I definitely want to talk about Batista Agut and his really great, I thought, fight and match against Novak. But Novak was too much in the end. And I also want to talk something about the women's final, but this is mainly just going to be for the FEDAL match. I'll come back. I have to race across Central Park, and while I'm doing that, I will give a couple of those little Twitter videos on the other two things I just mentioned. Yes, the heart of a champion. I've been watching tennis a long time, and I've done it as my job for at least a decade now, about a decade, I guess. And it's like a job, so I don't sit and get into that fan mode as much as I used to, or almost never anymore. And it's very objective about everything I'm looking at, though it may seem like at times I'm like a Roger Federer fan. I just think there's so much he does good, and I think he's leading the way to a new style of tennis, and that's all I get excited about. But I got chills at the end of this match, because that was the heart of a champion. And Roger, as I said in my French Open video about the bad wind, I had mentioned something about how Roger didn't always, to me, have the fight and the grind and the mentality that Rafa had. But then again, Rafa's the greatest ever we've ever seen at that. But I just felt, Roger didn't always grind things out. I even think back in the day he could have played more defense, and he had great defense himself. I showed one little Twitter video to show that, his own brand of aggressive defense, and he had a lot of variety on his defense back in the day, and he used it to hurt people like Safin and others. But against Rafa, he just wouldn't put that mindset in to say, I have to deal with this guy over here. First of all, it kind of hit him out of nowhere. He was killing everyone, and suddenly Rafa was there. And then, people talked about him coming, but it's one thing to talk about a guy, and then one thing you play him, and you're like, oh my God, this guy never stops. Every single point's a monster point. And Roger just wouldn't give into that grind. And I remember everybody was at the French Open saying, he needs to be more aggressive. He needs to be more aggressive. That's his issue. Well, definitely on the backhand. Some things on the second serve return backhand and all that. But a lot of it to me was that he was being over-aggressive. He wasn't being patient enough. He wouldn't trust in his defense enough. And more than anything, he just wasn't willing to sit there and grind it out and be patient. Chrissy Everett made a great comment. Roger was so patient today. He was so patient, because at the end it went his way, but a lot of the time during the match, the lines, the net cords, everything seemed to be going Rafa's way. Again, that's a great mentality. When you have a great positivity, honestly, you get luck, and I don't need to get into all that, but that's how it works. So again, Rafa gets lucky a lot, but it's because he makes it with his mentality. So he was sort of getting, there was a lot of times he could have been down at breaks, and he could have been down a double break in that last set. There were so many, and again, that fight, the fight, and he just never stops, and it's like he never goes away. And but Roger stayed calm, and he kept his mind together, and he just kept battling, and it's not the kind of grind that you see from Rafa. They're not the same people, but it's a grind, man. I mean, Roger may be just standing there and being calm and rooming his brow and whatever. I don't care. It's fight. He's fighting. He's hanging in. I just think it was, congrats to you, Roger Federer. I mean, this was a nemesis. A lot of people don't go through this. A lot of the great players in their time don't have this. Michael Jordan didn't have this. They don't have someone else who's so great, and not just a great player, but so great in the mind at the same time that you're come on the scene, and also has an advantage in a matchup, which is a different thing for tennis than a team sport. So that's another thing. So Roger has had to deal with something most great players don't have to in their career. And I'm not saying boo-hoo or anything. I'm just saying congrats to him for staying the course. It took him a while, but he made changes finally. And he's worked and worked and worked. And of course, Rafa and Djokovic are making changes as well. But that's Rafa's MO. Rafa's always looking to grab you and pull you down, grab you and pull, and punch you out, knock you out. So, but that, I just say big congrats to Roger. I want to say, this 2008, I'm not a fan of that. Okay, everybody's going to say, well, Roger lost that. That's why you don't. He actually had a back injury that year and went on a lot of he had mono. He never brings that up now. Anybody who knows tennis and remembers it, have to remember that. He's too classy to bring that up. It was a dramatic match, no doubt about it. There was more dirt on the court. Look at some of those old highlights. There's more dirt back then. They've done a much better job with the grass now. Yes, bad bounces and whatever, but it's grass. That's what you're supposed to be playing on, is grass, not dirt. So there was a lot of advantages happening. The ball was slowing then. It's actually slower now. If there's one thing that's still a big advantage, Rafa has a big advantage with the ball. And that's part of the reason I actually thought this year, because the grass is, the courts kind of get slower mainly due to the ball. And the Roland Garros, the French Open ball, is playing a little faster this year. I really thought we might see Roger pull out the French Open and then Rafa win the Wimbledon. Also because Rafa's playing much more aggressive now, and Roger has even more variety now, I think. And he was using it brilliantly in French Open. I had that big video about it against Wawrinka. And the wind, 35-mile-per-hour wind gusts took that thing out of the picture. That was done. Roger was done. But had that not happened, those conditions, I think Roger could have won that. Now, I also think Rafa very much could have won this match. But again, the variety Roger's showing, and I'm telling you, the extra grass on the court tremendously helped. If it was more of a dirt court, like 2010 and a couple years before, with this kind of slow felt ball, there's no way Roger wins. And that's my opinion. And I showed a couple of videos on Twitter about some of those bad bounces. Roger was using it brilliantly. Just, those little soft, just nothing. I'm doing a guiding, don't pay attention to me, but my form, but just up and over the net, little soft, off pace, let the grass do it. And a lot of times there weren't bad bounces. I was shocked how many times they were getting these long rallies and the bounces weren't that bad. I was like, wow. But other times they were going off. And Rafa was off balance, like some of the time, a lot of the time he was off balance. So some of that was going on. I also think the fight, again, I'm going to get back to the fight. Roger and the fight, the grind, man, he's doing it. And just as much as I give such a big kudos to Rafa, and Rafa, if you're watching this, I don't know about that, but big time congrats to you and your team and Moya for the changes you have made. But he was doing it way before Moya. Rafa's always improving. Big time. I bow. That's amazing. Roger needed fight and grind, and he's been building on this for years. This has been going at Del Potro in the Olympics he played. And it's not that Roger, don't get me wrong, Roger always had a heart of a champion. He's a champion. I don't mean to say he didn't. I'm just saying there was a different mindset and mentality, and he's doing it, and it's coming to this culmination at the Australian Open when he beat Rafa, and here. And I think the Pui-Nishikori matches, I said this before in my video, that those lead-ins for Roger were better than the lead-in for Rafa, because Querrey and Nick Kyrgios and these guys don't play like Roger, and they're not even in good form right now. Not that Pui and Nishikori were at their top forms, but they played really well. Though Querrey played well, but he's not in his top form. But and I know everybody thinks Kyrgios played so well. I'm just telling you, Kyrgios can play better. He screwed up a lot in those tie breaks. He's not in form anyway. Pui and Nishikori were much better. Even Goffin, back going down to Halle, those were better preps for Rafa. To play Rafa. So I think Roger was already ready to fight. He had a flat body to start against Nishikori, fought back. He really let down bad on the set two, and Rafa let down after that as well. And I know there's no proof, and you're not going to get anything from those guys. Rafa doesn't need to tell you anything. Roger doesn't need to tell you anything. They need to be honest with their team, which I have a feeling they are. Sometimes athletes are so strong-headed and fighters that they won't even admit that things are hurting, or they won't even notice it almost. Like there's stiffness, and they're like, it's just normal stuff. But I don't know. That's between them and their team. They do not have to tell us. I don't know if there will be that kind of honesty coming out. I think unless Roger takes a medical timeout or retires, he's not going to say anything about this. We know he has back issues as carries with him. He's an older guy now. He gets affected in his legs a lot. Rafa's always had a lot of issues, a lot of hard tennis on him. His legs, his knees on grass. He's low all the time. Not as bad as the hard courts, the cement, which really beats into his knees. But the Wimbledon's not easy either, and he's always low. And I've had some, I'm not even supposed to mention, but there was some talk, that's all I'm going to say. I could say this after the tournament, but anyway, bottom line is, I don't know if there's some knees going on with Rafa. I definitely think something in the legs. He was feeling it some in the legs, and that was part of the letdown late. Roger's feeling it in his back. This has been going on all tournament. I'll just come out and say it. I don't, it may be some back spasm, tightness, soreness. He'll tell you he's sore. He would lie to say he's not sore right now at 37. All this grass tennis, all the tennis he's played this year, and the clay coming in. But are these the reasons this all happened, the way this all happened, this match? No. But they had an effect. And Roger, it's a combo with a tired mind. He's older, so the mind's getting more tired. It wears down, the mind wears down, and the body wears down. And I think he's carrying somewhat of a back. His serving went down a lot. He would be able to pump it back up at times, but it went down a lot after the first set, in my opinion. There was a lot of lower percentage of the 125, stuff like that, a lot more in the teens. So I think he's having it. I don't even know what I'd call it exactly. Maybe a letdown, a back letdown, a body. I would just say a big body letdown, and then maybe a little fatigue on that late, some fatigue late, and I would in parentheses have the back. I mean, like that's the leading cause, and maybe some legs as well, and that's it. With Rafa, less so even. I think he was feeling it in his legs, but that's it. I think Rafa otherwise was pretty darn healthy. I think Nadal was also having a lot of frustration. So it's the combo of the frustration, because Roger plays all this aggressive variety, which is what I said. All the credit to Rafa for changing his game. But this is Federer's game. This is what he does. And you're changing to his style. Federer has more fight now, but he's not sitting back there playing huge rallies. He's not changing to Rafa's style. Rafa's changing to his style. That's hard. That is hard to do. And so, yeah, Rafa's great right now with his offense, but against a guy like even a Kyrgios or even like Roger, that's tough. And so I think there was the variety, and Roger using all that grass that you haven't seen except the last couple of years. It's been a denser grass. It may be dead and green both, but Roger's using a lot of low balls, bad bounces, all that. That was frustrating Rafa, getting him off balance. And Roger didn't just have the back and the body. He was dealing also with the emotion of this is arch nemesis, the strongest mind, playing his best grass tennis. Nadal's playing his best grass tennis. He's been improving for years at this, way better than he was in 2008. That's another thing. That was dirt back then more. I mean, he is way better than 2008 now on grass. And so this combination and just Rafa's presence, that's tough on Roger. And he was trying so hard to be patient, which is against not his natural way, I don't think, Roger. And he was working it so hard. Plus, he's got some of the back and the body going on together, just a complete letdown crash. I think he let go at the end of that set. And I talked about this at the French Open. He let go at the end of the French Open as well. Smart. I mean, you're not coming back on that. Let it go, and you're not coming back on that set. Rafa was rolling, let it go, and I think that helped Roger have some extra energy and go forward. And that's pretty much all I have to say. It's again, the balls. Yes, the balls favored Roger at the French, and they favored Rafa at Wimbledon. But this grass court is about aggression still. Just all the elements I've talked about. And even the bad bounces. That means be aggressive. Mix it up aggressively. It doesn't mean you have to hit with power. Just mix it up aggressively. And that's all about Roger. And the clay court still, even with the faster ball, is still about that rally, that setting up the points, playing from the baseline. And that's still all about Nadal. And Roger has such good feelings about the grass. The feelings are important. Rafa has such great feelings about the French Open. So while I thought maybe, just maybe, and I would have loved it because it would have been such an interesting twist that Roger wins the French, Rafa wins the Wimbledon. The tennis is a very ordered sport. It's so dictated by the mind and the feelings of the player. And the conditions as well, and it's hard to beat Rafa at the French. So even without that win, it would have been tough. I think Roger had a chance, but it would have been tough. And here, it's just hard to beat Roger on Wimbledon. He really has to be beat up, which now he might be for Djokovic, but I'm hoping not, but we'll see.